This is the fall of shooters, and one of the bigger ones coming out this year is Titanfall 2. I'm Justin Haywald, and I'm talking with Rob Handlery, who spent an extensive amount of time with the game. Now, Titanfall 1 did not really have much of a single-player component. It was primarily a multiplayer shooter, and you had to glean what was going on from the world around it, but they're changing that up in Titanfall 2. There's a whole single-player campaign, and you played through the entire thing.
I did, yeah.
So what do you think about it? Just in general, what's your impression?
In general, first impressions were it's a very solid, jam-packed campaign. Mm-hmm. However, I would say I really wanted a little more in the end, in that my playthrough time was about 5 hours on regular difficulty. I will say that 5 hours, there was a lot going on. Like, it seemed every corner there was a really well-polished, good-looking game. There are other parts down the road of the campaign that I felt were kind of lacking, but yeah, I had a great time with it.
Well, thinking about the length, especially for Call of Duty and Battlefield, those are typically pretty short experiences. Do you feel like it compares to that as far as what you got out of that experience?
It's very different, and that's a bigger discussion, right? Like, where does your time factor in? Like, most people, RPG want those 100 hours, whatever plus. I think of a shooter campaign as being, upwards maybe to 10 hours. And I think that is or can be an issue. However, the 5 hours that I played were really exciting, and I was never at any point frustrated or bored. I think it was just very smartly done. It was very well orchestrated. It's again jam-packed is how I would imagine it. Like, even looking back at the footage I captured, it was like, wow, this is a really great looking game.
See you down there, Rifleman. Good luck.
Get your ass out of the sim pod, Cooper. Meet at the dropship.
But yeah, just to kind of also go over what this single player is about is, this time around it's very heavily played into the fact that you are a person and you have a bond with this Vanguard class Titan, who's kind of like a one-of-a-kind, and he's got a very, how would you say, kind of stubborn personality. After Captain Lastimosa is killed in combat, he gives you the Titan. You are just a simple, good-for-nothing, bottom-of-the-barrel rifleman, and you kind of rise to become the hero of the game.
So in this game, only specific people have Titans, and that's kind of like rising up in the ranks to being a top-tier commando.
Right. And as you do that, the game does a very smart way, and I think people would compare it to Mega Man-esque type situations where after you beat a boss, you get a new class, more or less, of Titan. Mm-hmm. So Scorch is one of the first ones you get. You become Scorch. You now can switch, as the game progresses, you can switch between loadouts, which is really fun, and it really changes up the pace because, as you know, this time around, the Titans are taking a very character-based stance, and that's well expressed as the game kind of unfolds.
Well, that's really interesting that, especially when you think about this, compared to other shooters, Battlefield, Call of Duty, those are typically very narrative-focused, but it sounds like this is more of a traditional experience if you have boss battles against the Titans that you're going to unlock. Mm-hmm. So is that how it plays out? That
Absolutely.
It is fighting against this, then you unlock him?
Yeah, it does that. At times, though, it's actually not so much as you kill the boss and you get his weapon. The next level occurs, and you just kind of pick up the weapon on the ground. And then eventually, a couple of these weapons are just kind of handed to you. So that kind of loses its punch, I think, at times. But the levels are very structured around that. You can definitely count on a boss being at every end of the level.
I've also heard a lot of comparisons in the single player to games like Portal 2, both in maybe the humor and in the puzzle solving.
Absolutely, and there are essentially three ways this game kind of handles what your experience is, and that there is pilot combat, your general first-person shooter experience, Titan combat, and then pilot platforming. So many levels do a fantastic job at taking the platforming that you know from the game, but also adding a mechanic or a change-up that will prohibit you from traveling through a level. For instance, certain moments you're on foot, you're unable to traverse around because of some nasty fog, in which case you need to get in your Titan in order to go through. Mm-hmm. Or you have to hit a switch, forcing you out of the Titan, traverse around. A lot of puzzles in this game. And those are played pretty well. Like, I had a fun time doing so. And I will say that there are 2 levels in this game that are original. So original that I was awestruck by like how they were done. And it is killing me that I can't talk about them, especially around the office here, but they are so original and fun that I would go back and play them multiple times again.
Yeah, of course, we don't want to talk about spoilers at all.
Right.
People watching this probably haven't even gotten a chance to play it yet. But what is it that you think makes those things exciting and fun?
I don't want to spoil it. It's like, it's just a change up. And that's what the game is really doing, is that you are given platforming, and I would say at times, again, like these 2 levels are very standoutish. And then later on, it's kind of just, I would say, almost more of a gimmick, like something I've seen before. And that's fine, and it makes things difficult. You know, I have to operate cranes in order to basically make my own platforming path. But there are these 2 other things that happen in the game that I think, for me at least, kind of like changed a synapse in my head and made me realize how I can utilize this idea, this mechanic that is changing up the platforming. And the game does a really great job at that, again, in certain moments. And then I think oftentimes it's simple and it's not necessarily difficult. However, I would say that if they were to like for the crane system, for instance, that almost got a little tedious. However, if they went more puzzle-esque and made me really think about, I have to do multiple things at once, I think that would perhaps detract from the actual shooter experience. Again, and I will mention this crane level, what I think I needed to have done was play this on a higher difficulty, because I kind of flew through some of these, and I would recommend anyone play this at a higher difficulty, because I think certain levels, the platforming and how you utilize it is all about Titanfall. And I think there are moments where like the AI is so difficult, or can be so difficult, that you need to basically find ways of platforming around to better help you in your quest to kill.
Does Titanfall 2 kind of answer some of those questions about what is this world and what is the setting for where this game takes place?
I would say yes and no. You're never really given answers to like the world itself, just more or less your mission. So almost the entire time, the only knowledge that you are given, because again, you're a nobody rifleman, the only knowledge you are given is through your companion BT, and that's just through chatter. And again, there are like pretty funny dialogue choices, one being a more humorous response to BT, or like a kind of more sincere one. And those are kind of nice to go through.
I think somebody's in love.
A human's concept of love requires admiration, attraction, devotion, and respect. Conclusion: I am 50% in love.
But again, it's a very cut and dry, just like you're on a mission. But I would say, as far as if you're looking to know like everything about this world, you're just kind of doing it through the eyes of this robot.
Are there dinosaurs?
Yes, there are. there are like not many. I would say that much.
I just want all games to be Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
Your biggest criticism with the game, what would that be?
One of my biggest criticisms, I would have to say, is for a game that is really great. I think, speaking of the multiplayer with abilities, right? You get the new grapple, you get cloak, you get all these abilities. The game does not really handle the pilot abilities that well. Yes, you get different loadouts for your Titan as the game progresses. You're really only introduced or given one. And I think that was kind of a bummer, because there is something to say about Titanfall, like changing it up. Like again, like the grapple changed the platforming game. It would have been nice to have been given that and then taken that away. Or like having a diversity in pilot abilities would have been a much more creative experience. But I would say, to pull that back, it is at its core just a single player narrative, and it's very much that. And I think if I want those pilot abilities, that's why there's multiplayer, and I can look forward to playing that. Again, there are moments where wall running and platforming can get a little simplified, despite their attempts of adding curveballs. Like a wall fires in your face now. How are you gonna platform around this? Those can get a little boring. But in general, I think it's just like a short and sweet campaign. I would have liked more. I think that's where I was a little bummed. I would have liked more.
So ultimately, do you feel like this adds to the experience, or do you feel like, you really just want multiplayer and it would have been fine without a single-player game?
I think it adds to the world. That's what people wanted. So I think, in general, it played it safe, and it delivers in that respect. That you're getting like an answer to like why is there a battle between the militia and the IMC? There's reason behind it, and there's even more of a stance. Like what's funny enough is I feel like in the first game you kind of had an idea that the militia were good guys and the IMC were bad guys. In this game, it's full on IMC. They're messed up. They're like Vault Tech messed up, which is pretty interesting. So it's almost like this is the game that should have been in the first one. It's like they just wiped the plate clean and they're like now establishing the story of Titanfall. I think they have achieved that.
Well, people will get to try it out soon. When does the game come out?
The 28th.
So
of October.
Of October, super soon. So October 28th, Titanfall 2 is going to be out in stores, and if you want to read our full review and get more tips and tricks about how to play the game, stay tuned to GameSpot.com.
Wind, 3 knots, heading 274. Range, 95 meters. Projectile mass, 89 kilograms. Trust me.
I think I'm going to need some new underpants.